Are we ready? You ready? You ready?
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the March 10th, 2022 meeting of the RTC Board of Commissioners. I think Mayor March, or not.
I'm online, as is George Gall.
Okay. All right. Do we need to identify? We have the people on Mayor March and Councilman Gall. All right, the first item on the agenda is to conduct the first citizens participation period. If anyone is interested in providing public comment on an item that is on the agenda, please step forward, state and spell your name for the record.
Good morning, my name is Don Johnson. I am the Vice President and General Manager for MV Transportation. We operate both the paratransit and the fixed route for the residential. I'm coming today to speak to you about would like to thank the board and commission and MJ and Francis for considering two items on the agenda today, item 15 and item 17. There should be tremendous efforts to retain our current workforce and to recognize the outstanding professional drivers that have been doing this all through the pandemic, and how important it is for us to recognize them through this effort, and also help us in recruiting new operators to join and become new operators in the future. And I appreciate it, and thank you all for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Good morning. Esteemed members of the board, RTC staff, my name is Lisa DeMarinay. I'm the Managing Director of Tango Car. I want to thank you for your consideration of the recruitment and retention incentives on the agenda today. We value our partnership with RTC and this board, and we appreciate your willingness to assist us in hiring and retaining our workforce. During the initial COVID shutdown, healthcare employees were certainly the most visible of frontline essential workers. However, drivers were the reason the most vulnerable of our population were able to access healthcare appointments, dialysis treatment, grocery stores, and family. Drivers put their health at risk to serve others. Unfortunately, during that time, many drivers elected to retire or change careers. The reopening of business left drivers questioning their job choices and battling child and elder care issues at a time when our community needs them even more. For a new company like ours who have pioneered on-demand service, deploying funds from the American Rescue Plan Act for recruiting and hiring incentives are critical in allowing us to continue to meet the transportation needs of employees who've returned to work, students who've returned to school, those requiring ongoing healthcare services, and those simply needing to reconnect with family and friends. We thank you for recognizing the important role of our drivers to the recovery from the devastating economic and health effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. We appreciate the RTC staff and leadership for being on the front line with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DeMarinay.
Good morning, Vice Chair Jones and commissioners, as well as MJ and Francis. My name is Mark Perla. I'm the Vice President for Keolis, North America West Region. I too wanted to thank the board, RTC, Francis, MJ, and the whole RTC team for your leadership on this very exciting opportunity. Our operators and our technicians and staff certainly worked very hard in the last 2 years, very challenging times, and to show this leadership that the board has brought forth today is really going to help our opportunities to retain operators, which is critical for our success, obviously transporting all the individuals in Las Vegas. So we really want to thank you for this opportunity. We encourage you to vote for it, and just really want to just appreciate the partnership that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to express public comment? If not, then we'll go ahead and close public comment, and I'll turn it back over to Ms. Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jones. The next item is to approve the agenda. Staff suggests that item 22 be pulled from the consent agenda and heard separately. Otherwise, the agenda is in order and ready for your approval.
All right, any comments from the board? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. All right, there is a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Ms. Maynard.
Thanks, Vice Chair Jones. The next item is to receive your CEO report. But before we get started, we do have some exciting news to share. We were recently notified, actually it was yesterday, that the RTC will be awarded a $4.8 million federal grant through the Federal Transit Administration's Bus and Bus Facilities Program. This grant will allow the RTC to buy 3 hydrogen fuel cell buses and install solar lighting at 250 stops throughout the system. We are extremely grateful to our federal delegation. Their support and leadership has been critical in advancing our agency's safety and sustainability initiatives. I also want to recognize our internal grants team and RTC subject matter experts. This team is aggressively working both internally and externally with our community partners to continue to identify and apply for grant funding opportunities. So great job. Next, we would like to recognize an operator from our contractor, MV. To present that item, we have a video prepared with Deputy CEO Francis Julian.
Thank you, MJ. Today we're celebrating an operator from MV Transportation, Boris Hollinger. Boris is a million miler, so he's driven over 1 million miles without getting an accident. He's got a really, really good OTP, or on-time performance, but most impressive is he actually drives the Game Day Express. And he actually has a fan base driving the Game Day Express. People are actually skipping buses to make sure they ride on Boris's bus because he puts such a great ambiance inside those vehicles. So let's go and watch Nathan surprise Boris.
Boris, hi. Congratulations, you are this month's Crystal Bus winner.
First of all, it's a blessing. You know, I always got to thank God. I got to thank, Jesus, my man upstairs. My mom, my best friend. Of course, she's not here today. I'm not a mama's boy or anything, but she'll be very proud. It's just what I do. It's fun. Win or lose, it's just a fun atmosphere. They love me. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I'm not sugarcoating it. They love me. I love them, and it's just a fun thing. I'm just being me. I take pride in what I do, and that's all I can really say. To be honest with you, But yeah, I'm just blessed, everybody. I appreciate this. I really do.
Yay, and Boris is here today. Boris?
Thank you, Boris, for being you.
Thank you. And that concludes your CEO report.
Well, that was short and sweet.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions from the board? All right.
Okay. Thanks, Vice Chair Jones. The next item is to receive the NDOT Director's Report. Director Christina Swallow is here to provide the
Thank you.
update.
Director Swallow.
Good morning, everyone. This month, we don't quite yet have the fatality report from last month, so just going to talk a little bit about some other safety-related items. And what I really wanted to focus on today was the 6 E's of traffic safety. We've talked about the E's. The number of E's have grown over the years. So if you remember, at some point there were the 3 E's and the 4 E's. Well, there are 6 E's. And the one that we most recently added is equity. And we added that this past year when we completed our update for the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, because we recognize that crashes don't impact everyone in the same way. There are disparate impacts on our communities. Some communities are impacted more than others. And so we really want to make sure we're taking into account equity as we work to really improve the safety on our network. And you always hear me talk about engineering. You hear me talk about everyone. The other thing that I wanted to also focus on, and I think we saw this a little bit in the crash in North Las Vegas at the end of January, is enforcement. And the concept of enforcement is not just the law enforcement officers that we see out on the roads, but it also links back to the courts and making sure that we're all working together every day to make sure that we're making our network safer. There have been some comments and questions about, in the past couple months, about where the crashes are, what's leading. Of course, we've talked about speed, and I have a slide to talk a little bit about speed after this one. You'll see that on the network, primarily the crashes, I'll note on the far right, that's only 9 months for 2020. We all know 2020 was worse than 2019. The crashes predominantly occur on the local roads. It's just a little over 50%. When I first saw this, I thought, wow, NDOT roads, we have 14% of the roads in the state, and we have 50%, or almost 50% of the crashes, but we actually carry 50% of the volume. So it's representative. The crashes occur on the higher volume corridors, whether it's an NDOT corridor or a major arterial in the local agencies. They don't typically occur on our neighborhood streets. So you can see it's roughly a 50% split between local and NDOT roads, which highlights the fact that we all have to work together to address safety on. It's not one of our problems, it's everyone's problem. And then we did talk about speed last month, and you can see how the speed is occurring. And I spoke a little bit about this with an interim legislative committee yesterday, and these are the citations. This isn't all the speeding. This is where there happens to have been a law enforcement officer who was able to catch somebody speeding. So while the split looks like it might be appropriate, lion's share is in Clark, some in Washoe, some in the rest of the state. This is by no means representative of all the speeding that we see, or even all the speeding over 100 miles an hour. I'll note that there is not a single road in the state that is posted over 80 miles an hour. There is not a single road in southern Nevada that's posted over 75. So when you see this number of citations for going over 100, they were going 25 miles an hour or more above the speed limit. That's where we need to not just talk about the engineering of the road, because none of our roads were designed for this speed, but we also need to talk about behavior. And one of the features of the IIJA is it allows us to flex some of our safety money back into behavioral programs. That had been a feature for many years, but had been taken out in recent bills, and so we're glad that that flex is back in there so that we can really work on behavior. But again, there's 6 E's. We all got to work together. It's not one thing, it's all of the things. All right, advisory working group. We met in person, all in the same place on Tuesday. So far, all of the meetings that we've been doing have been split between North and South because our stakeholders do represent organizations both from Northern Nevada and Southern Nevada. But we recognize that this meeting in March and our April meeting, we had some really critical conversations that we needed to have, and it was important that everybody be in the same room. And so we were all in the same room. We were working together to really start narrowing down. You may recall last month I showed, I think it was 25 different financing or funding mechanisms. At this meeting, it was kind of fun. We got to stand up, we got to interact a little bit, and we got to start narrowing down those funding mechanisms. What will work and what is important to be advanced for further study in the short-term, near-term funding. What is important that we look at for longer-term funding, and what is important to look at for some more flexible funding sources. The results of this meeting was some narrowing down. The consulting team is going to look at those. They're going to look at how you might put those together, at what levels to generate the revenue that is needed. And in April, I think we'll really start looking at trying to not just narrow down, but really get to a solution. The next meeting, as I mentioned, is April. It will be in Northern Nevada. These are all public meetings and eligible for public comment. We actually had someone make some public comment from the city of Henderson, or not from the city, but who lives in Henderson, at this meeting. So and I believe we offer opportunities to provide written comment as well. So if people are interested, we continue to be out on the road and talk to the local agencies and do presentations. I know we have 2 scheduled next week at the City of Las Vegas, City North Las Vegas. I think we're working on scheduling something for the City of Mesquite. If you're interested, let us know. We're happy to do it, and we're happy to, and we will be coming back around again after the April meeting, so everybody knows how those recommendations are starting to fine-tune. All right, some construction updates. 515, we're in the final phases of both of the bridge reconstructions at Eastern and DI. Concrete was poured on the Eastern Bridge deck late last month. Girders were placed on the DI bridge in late February, also late last month. The concrete deck pour is scheduled for March 13th for DI, and it will prompt another closure of the DI bridge, but it will only be overnight. We do continue to appreciate everybody's help in working to make sure that we're getting people to where they need to go around these closures. And a couple more. Main Street at 515 structure has been reduced to 1 lane in both directions so crews can do some trench work and place ITS to make sure that our FAST system has all the connectivity it needs. And DI will be closed again March 13th overnight for the new bridge. This summer, we anticipate we'll have some additional mainline reductions as the final paving is completed on 515. And then one more, Nellis. So we've been working on Nellis, I think it's already been a year. We are rehabilitating a 10-mile section of Nellis between Tropicana and Craig Road. We are in the second of 3 waves of marathon construction weekends to completely rebuild 3 key intersections. We completed Nellis and Sahara in January. We're currently working on Nellis and East Bonanza. That work is scheduled to be March 11th through 13th, so this weekend, and March 18th through 20th, so next weekend. And later we'll do Nellis and Charleston. It's important that we do these marathon closures because it really has less of an impact on the overall driving public than if we do it bit by bit, and also results in a better product in the end. The project overall will enhance safety along the corridor by adding more mid-block pedestrian crossings with overhead rapid flashing beacons. New ADA accessible ramps, sidewalks, and driveways will be installed and tied into ITS facilities. In addition, the Sahara, Charleston, and Bonanza intersections will undergo full-depth asphalt repaving with streetlight replacements and signage improvements to hopefully rejuvenate the corridor. That has 3 school zones and make it more pedestrian friendly. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Swallow. Councilman Anthony.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about the slides that talked about the crashes and the speeding. And there was an article in the Las Vegas Review-Journal a couple of weeks ago about state troopers and how the state is having a terrible time hiring troopers and retaining them. The state's got to fix that because I mean, that's the reason why people are going 100 miles an hour on the freeways is because there's no punishment for doing it. They know they're not going to get caught. They know they're not going to get a ticket, so they go 100 miles an hour. So unless we get more troopers out there to write citations, people are just going to drive stupid. That's just the way it's set up today. So I just urge the state that they have to start hiring more troopers, paying them better, because if they don't, then they're not going to hire anyone, and they're just going to go to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and some of these other departments that pay more. So I don't know if the RTC has any way to weigh in on that, but unless we get troopers out there writing citations, crashes and speeding are going to continue to go up. Doesn't matter what else we do. People know that if they don't get caught, they're going to drive like maniacs. So that's just my comment, and there you go. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one question and a comment. Director Swallow, by the way, I'm very heartened by the fact that you're going to be doing some safety upgrades along that corridor. It is really, really needed. I'm very happy with the little flashing signs. I mean, they do so much, and in North Las Vegas, I think we have greatly reduced on a couple of intersections like Lake Mead and Civic Center, where we have those, and it's really reduced the amount of reports that I get at all sorts of weird hours, right? Will that also going to include those barriers that are located closer to the they're like pedestrian barriers, so people cannot jaywalk short of the intersections. They seem to be very, very effective in funneling people either towards one of the flashing beacon thingies, or to the actual intersection where they might actually be able to cross with a light. Will these upgrades include those especially like at Bonanza, where you have a lot of traffic? And also, I think the other big one, Stewart and Nellis, is one where you see a lot of jaywalking. And, well, I think there's a lot of parts in Nellis there, but will it include those little fences? You know what I'm talking about. I don't know what they're called, but they're definitely environmental people controllers, so to speak.
I don't know if the project will have any fencing to channel pedestrians. I don't know, but we can work on finding out for you.
If you find out, I'd be very happy about that, and if you can winnow that into the project, I think that'll be a nice little step for the area. I will say this, I was actually very happy that you mentioned that in all of this, our friends in the courts, the judges, they actually have a big impact on what happens with speeding. Because, I mean, if you have, I guess I've gone ahead and paid for a service, an attorney service to go and bust my ticket. You see them all the time, the ticket busters, right? So you have people who speed. They might get pulled over by one of your friends there on the service, and they're given a ticket. But if you can just go and to a judge and have a ticket buster knock down your fine that might be several $100s because you were speeding 25 miles over the speed limit and get knocked down to $50. Well, I guess right there we're kind of like encouraging people to drive like maniacs I'm hoping that eventually it may not even have to be any legislation. We might not even need legislation if we have the judges maybe administratively look at this relationship that they have with the people who come in front of them, other attorneys who are getting paid to knock down people's fines. And again, I know I get it. I've gotten a speeding ticket. Many of us have. But eventually, we're going to have to decide as a community if this is what we want to continue doing. Pay your way out of this, and then kind of give license for people to go ahead and speed how you want. Thank you very much for bringing that up, though. I think that definitely has not been part of the conversation, and I know I'd like to become part of the conversation.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question, and I'm looking at your slide on advisory working group and the funding mechanisms. Currently, the events in the Ukraine and the fact that gas is moving up to $5 plus a gallon, the overarching effect on these discussions of funding mechanisms, and I know that both affects RTC and NDOT. When was this last one?
Tuesday, yes.
Tuesday, okay. So was that part of the discussion? Is that now going to be part of this regression formula of plus or minus and then going forward?
So specifically, the current increasing rates of fuel costs was not part of the overall conversation about the revenue and how we generate revenue. I think everyone in that room is sensitive to the fact that fuel costs right now are extraordinarily high. What's interesting about this is that revenue or that cost of fuel has nothing to do with the revenue we generate for the system and everything to do with the oil companies. And so it's interesting to think about how, and there's you've, I'm sure, seen, there's different initiatives across the nation at the federal level and at local levels to really look at fuel tax and the impact of fuel tax on the driver. Ultimately, fuel prices fluctuate on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, without regard to what that fuel tax is. That has not been in Nevada reset since the early 1990s, and in the federal government it also hasn't been reset. I think that will become part of the conversation about what we might be able to advance, or what the legislature might be able to advance, because ultimately the advisory working group is providing a study as directed by the legislature to the legislative committees, and then the legislature will have to determine what to do with those recommendations. So I imagine it will still be an ongoing conversation. It's one of those challenges. You have to fund the system somehow. How do you fund it? What's the best way? What are the sources, available sources? It's not an easy challenge. It's not an easy question, which is probably why we haven't looked at it since the 1990s. But if we don't, we will not have enough resources to maintain our roads in the condition they are, maintain our bridges, and continue to grow in the way that our communities have been growing over the past several decades.
Okay, thank you. Because I talked to a friend of mine who owns a 7-Eleven this morning, and the people are buying less fuel. And I'm thinking, okay, and that means less fuel tax. And so,
And hopefully more bus riders.
Pardon?
If there's going to be less fuel tax, hopefully there's more bus riders.
yes, yes, yeah, but you still have to put fuel in buses.
And I still have to pay for my roads.
And you still have to pay for your roads, so the long-term consequences. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Commissioner?
Thank you. I have a comment and a question. So I wasn't sure if the Lieutenant Governor was proposing a tax increase to pay for those additional salaries for the police.
I'm sure we can make some tax cuts at the state level to pay for the police.
Okay, good.
Probably waste a lot
Just
of
wanted to
money
make sure
at the
we
state
weren't
level,
going
so
there.
Let's go that. Let's start with that route first.
Okay, good. And question to the director. So I assume it's too late to put the power lines underground on Nellis, but is this something that the state is looking at when you're doing these roads that are really more local roads than they are state roads?
Thank you for the question. Interestingly, as I reported on Nellis, I held back from saying Nellis is one of those projects that was already way too far down the road before I started to really make a lot of changes. And the team hears this. I'm like, why? I wish I wish we could have made some changes to Nellis. With regards to the power lines, I don't know that I've actively alerted the team to the power lines, but we are actively working on making sure the sidewalks are functional sidewalks. And that gets to the power lines. Are the sidewalks functional sidewalks? Do we have other facilities? Are the roads built too big? So, but I think you're getting to more some of just the undergrounding and the challenges with the visual barriers.
Absolutely. And so I don't know how, if I can make a request, but going forward, when you're looking at these projects, if you could try to include that, because it really makes a difference between when you're in the Summerlin, you don't see anything, you just see beautiful blue sky, and you're East Las Vegas, and all you see is lines, and there's more lines every day.
We have a couple projects coming up in the, I'm going to say older parts of town, because it's not just the Summerlin, it's not just east, it's north, right, it's around. So I'll make sure to highlight that to the team, and where it's possible, where we have prior rights, make sure to try to work through what options might be available.
Any comments or questions from those that are on the phone? If not, then I'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Director Swallow.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Next on the agenda is to approve the consent agenda. This consists of items 5 through 23 with the exception of item 22, which will be held separately and can be taken in one motion.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board on the consent agenda? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve. All right. There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. MJ.
Thank you. The next item is actually here, item 22, which was pulled from the consent agenda. Mark Trosdaw will introduce the item.
All right, Mr. Trosdaw.
Thank you, MJ. This item is to approve and adopt the 2022 Revenue Bond Request Resolution and forward the resolution on to the Board of County Commissioners to issue the highway improvement revenue bonds in the amount not to exceed $200 million for the financing of transportation improvement projects. However, you will note that there is a typo on the year listed on the agenda item and backup. It says 2021, where it should say 2022. Staff seeks approval of the item with the correction of the year from 2021 to 2022.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion with the change noted by Mr. Trosdahl.
Move to approve as corrected.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. MJ.
Thank you. The next item is to receive a presentation on the transportation impacts of health study final draft report. Ms. Deb Reardon, Manager of Transportation Planning for the RTC, is here to introduce the item.
Thank you,
Good
Ms.
morning,
Reardon.
everyone. For the record, I'm Deb Reardon, Transportation Planning Manager here at the RTC. And today we'll hear a bit more about the Transportation Impacts on Health study that really allows us to evaluate the health benefits and costs of our transportation decisions. Before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge a few of our key partners that contributed to this study, including UNLV, as well as the Southern Nevada Health District. This project was also supported by funds through the CDC REACH grant. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Larry Frank. He's the president of Urban Design for Health, and also a professor at the University of California, San Diego. So, Dr. Frank?
Morning. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Deb. Urban Design for Health is really thankful, my company, to have had this wonderful opportunity. You are leaders in the nation now in really considering not only the mobility and accessibility impacts of transportation, but how it affects our health and well-being. I'm president of Urban Design for Health, and also, as Deb said, I'll share an overview today of the Southern Nevada Transportation Impacts on Health Study, a little bit of information, a little bit, some data, not too much, but the study not only was led by us, but we did it in partnership with Purdue Marion, the University of Arizona, and Alta Planning and Design. So let me... Our goals are four. First is really to study and analyze health-related costs. So transportation investments not only affect chronic disease, there's been a tremendous amount of evidence accumulated in the last 20 years. I personally did the study proving that driving causes is a significant predictor. Time spent in cars not only results in consuming fuel and generating tax revenues. I actually worked at Washington State Department of Transportation for quite a while. It actually impacts its sedentary time. It predicts every hour in a car is a 6% increase in the likelihood of obesity. Chronic disease is strongly tied. It's intuitive, the relationship. I got teased when I wrote this study by my friends saying, you got paid to prove the obvious. Well, it's kind of a good thing to prove the obvious and actually quantify it. So the health effects can be monetized, and you've done that. So it's really important we understand this is a massive externality, not only on climate change, but health is very prescient to the populace, the voters care a lot about, we all care about our health. So the first goal of the study is to analyze transportation-related health costs due to inactivity, pollution, noise, and so forth. Second, to study, the second aim is to integrate these health costs into a decision-making tool so you can basically use them in your deliberation over prioritization. And really through the use of a mapping and modeling tool that we build and I'll present to you shortly. The next is really to suggest performance measures. What are the metrics? What will you track over time to understand how well your transportation system is helping with health or not, and what decisions lead you in the right direction and don't. Lastly, the study aims to increase the awareness of transportation's impact on health to the general public, because without the awareness of the public, it's difficult to make major shifts forward. Regional impacts, economic impacts are significant. First of all, in your jurisdictions here in this region, in the greater Las Vegas area, there's estimated 1.3 million cases of chronic disease. That's a huge number. That's when you take all morbidities, diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic diseases as well. This comes at an estimated cost of almost $2 billion, 1.9 due to injury and from crash and death. And that's the mortality side, but the morbidity side, the disease side, is even more, 2.9, almost $3 billion. These are estimated annual healthcare costs, very significant. So when you add it all up, you're looking at close to $5 billion impacts. The numbers on the health side actually over time exceed the infrastructure decision costs that you're making. So it's not like a rounding error, what we're talking about. It's very core to the economy. So the study provides you with multiple tools to better integrate health into your planning and decision-making processes. This is unique and thereby helping to improve health. The first tool is a Transportation Health Composite Index. And by the way, being leaders on this topic is super strategic because this is something that's unavoidable. And so you are at the forefront of the nation, and that really shows significant progressive thinking in this region. It's a really amazing opportunity. The first tool that you now have is a Transportation Health Composite Index. This is based on a health and equity map prepared by RTC staff and expanded on based on input from stakeholders. It includes a score based on over 30 data points that can be grouped into 3 categories. The first is vulnerability. The second is transportation-related health risk, and the third is health-related transportation access. Under vulnerability, we have both social and mental well-being, social vulnerability, isolation, very important for an aging population and all members of the population. I think if nothing else, the voters under COVID really learned what the effects are of isolation. Very timely and very close to many of us. Chronic health conditions related to transportation include diabetes, heart disease, asthma. There's also depression, which has a major impact on productivity and wellness. On the second factor, which is transportation health risks, traffic safety, crashes, exposure to air pollution and extreme heat and noise, and exposure to physical inactivity, sedentary lifestyle, being in a situation where you really can't walk anywhere to do anything much where you live, and also in the process of getting around, we don't get much physical activity either. That makes us vulnerable. The third is access. This includes access to high comfort active transportation infrastructure and more direct transit trips to healthcare and to work. Transit and active transportation modes work together as a system, as we know. You got to have the infrastructure to not only get on and off transit, but to be able to get to and from it. And that's very important. So this other topics came up that were important related to health-related access, health-related goods and services, job access, and green space access also matter. So as a result, when we mapped the index, we found that disease prevalence and transportation access is not equally distributed across the region, as you would expect. There's also some surprises. Areas in red have high health concerns, high vulnerability, based on socioeconomic factors and low transportation access. So the story is that these spatial factors converge and create stacked up vulnerability in certain geographic locations. In those locations, from the map you can see, there are places within your region where health-focused investments, such as investments in active transportation, having more green space and parks close to home, will have greater impact. In another study we did for the San Joaquin Council of Governments in California, we actually helped with the regional transportation plan, the long focused outward plan into the future, long-range plan. And we actually were able to show and publish this in the academic literature, the really significant effects that you can have by geographically targeting the active transportation infrastructure very carefully to those who need it the most. And and this gives you data and support evidence to back decision making, and that going forward you have now got a tremendous amount of data infrastructure to work with, public health, my company builds the National Public Health Assessment Model that's funded by the US EPA with some support from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, where we build the data sets for the country to map and track some of the predictors of health outcomes. We developed the National Public Health Assessment Model to really help create a localized, customized version we created a customized version of this tool for your region. Out of this project. It's a web-based tool. You now have a live, active tool that can be used in any different, it's geographically scalable. You can use it at transit station area, neighborhood, corridor, or whole region for the long-range plan, which is what we've done in Los Angeles. We've done this work in Rochester, New York, and a number of other cities around the country. On the left, you can see, so we start off with existing conditions. And you see in the middle, so it requires inputs describing the built, natural, and social environment at the neighborhood scale. That data exists for your region now, is loaded into the tool. And then in the middle, our data points are used by a suite of statistics, so you will decide through your decisions, what it through policy priorities, where you're going to invest, such as the onboard, I'll talk in a moment, of a scenario that we tested, which is your transit plan, which is ambitious. It's wonderful. And so we're able to document the health benefits of that investment that you're planning to do. So in the middle are, but it can also be somebody has a corridor where you're looking at making a greenway. perhaps through central Las Vegas in the center of the region. You want to take a street and convert it to bike lanes, where you're going to promote active transportation. We can document the health benefits of doing that and the cost benefit, which can be quite significant because that sort of reallocating road space in one street or corridor can be fairly inexpensive, and the health benefits of that could be quite significant. So basically, and on the right is the results. So this is the onboard scenario. Basically, elements of your onboard mobility plan were used to create a conceptual future scenario to be evaluated using the new health assessment tool that you now have. This allowed for a demonstration of the health impacts of changing access to transit and creating more walkable communities. So we have some results to show you from the implementation of the plan with some assumed land use changes around the station areas. And here you see the results. So these results reflect the people that are impacted by the investment in transit. They have immediate proximity to where the transit system will be. People living near the transit improvements are estimated to see significant benefits. Health costs per adult going down about 11%. These results, by the way, are consistent with what we've seen in many other places around the country where we've applied the tool, so they fit within the range of expected values. We don't expect to see 50% shifts or things like, if you do, you should be worried about the results. But a significant shift of 10% on average in some of these is about in range. Body mass index, BMI, going down by 13%, type 2 diabetes, a 10% reduction, hypertension down 14%, coronary heart disease going down 6%, walking for transport up 26%, biking up 5%. There's not so much biking infrastructure in the plan yet, but when you invest in biking more, you'll see that number move. Transit use almost doubling. Not surprising, that's a really ambitious plan, so that's the mode that you would expect to see shifting. Those are for people in the impacted area, though. And personal vehicle use down about 12%. So these numbers are in the expected range, and they give some evidence and some ability to think about what's next. So next, applying, as an MPO are now able to, and collectively as a region, all the stakeholders involved, apply the set of tools in upcoming plans such as the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, and your future transit-oriented development plan. You can use the model to evaluate other scenarios. This can be applied to look at alternative designs for corridors, sub-area, land use plans, et cetera, as I've already stated. Finally, the tools can support adding additional health-focused performance measures into the Regional Transportation Plan to share them through existing data dashboards and in public meetings. So when people ask you, why are we investing in this plan, it's not only about mobility, it's about their health. And it resonates very well, and having the evidence to back it up. The software tool is built off of 40 very large data sets that we have access to uniquely, that spatially, well, basically we've got a whole technical detail to show you if you're interested how it works, and look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Frank. Questions from the board? Councilman?
This is Deborah. I have a couple of questions.
All right, Madam Chair.
Could we bring up the map that you had? It's the index.
I think she wanted to see the onboard scenario conceptual map.
Yeah, index, the composite index. It shows the map of the valley and the colors.
Oh, the health composite index, I think.
This one.
Yes, yes. And I've got some feedback coming. I don't know if you can do anything about that, but.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, I was looking at the downtown. I know the city of Las Vegas has invested significantly in green space and walkability down there, yet it's heavily red in the downtown area. And I was wondering if there's going to be a deeper dive to better understand some of that. And then I look in the south, in Henderson, and in the Sun City community that actually has a lot of green space, but doesn't have transit service, and that area is actually red.
Yes. Okay, so this is not a new phenomenon for me to see. When we ran the model for we did a lot of work in Los Angeles for the largest MPO in the country, Southern California Association of Governments, and had similar questions. Demographics have a big influence in our models because our health is a function of age, income, ethnicity, a lot of the social indicators. Our demographics really underpin a lot of the outcomes. So the relative risk is better where you have the same demographics, but you also have what we know is investing in active transportation, in transit, getting people to be more active, less sedentary, and also providing green space reduces relative risk for chronic disease because that evidence is now very strong. And gotten a lot, and thus the Surgeon General's call to action in, I think, 2017 on this topic. So the thing that when you see in the map is you're looking at demographics as well. It's not just about the physical environment. And I'll see if Deb, I'm getting it. Okay, that's what we've seen elsewhere. So what will be helpful and what I propose is perhaps to follow up at the direction of the RTC to perhaps provide, I have a suggested solution, which is to map the relative differences to show what the benefits are of the investments being made in holding the demographics constant so you can see the effects of the other investments.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Griffin.
Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. Deb Reardon, Transportation Planning Manager for the record. And so just one more thing to add, the index includes over 30 different metrics. And within the tool, we can actually look at a particular area and evaluate more specifically why that location may be ranked low. So we can easily go into the tool, take a look at the downtown area and see those specific factors that may be pushing it into the red.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman Brown.
Yeah, quick clarification here, Prof. On the scenario results over here, it says transit use from 9 to 91. Is that a typo? I thought you said if it's like more than like 50%, you know.
A 91% increase is almost a doubling. That's what I said.
Okay. I guess I'm going from current to change there.
I'm just looking. I just read off the change scenario. It went from 9 to 91. Yeah, 9%.
Yeah. Okay. Quick question. I know one thing that's always really at the forefront of my mind there. In North Las Vegas, of course, we have I-15 that cuts right through our community, and so I always harken back to I think UNLV, their environmental sciences. Maybe it wasn't that department. I guess I'll have to dig it out, but I know they have a study on the impact on our community along, of course, the major axes of travel regarding microparticulates, which I'm sure is factored into the pollution there. What besides driving less, besides using less diesel fuel, did the study address microparticulates in detail, or is that something that that'll just part of the actually the comprehensive plan?
I think more work will need to be done on this topic, but air pollution exposure and walkability are super highly correlated. So you're absolutely right, and part of the red on the map that I didn't answer was that it also is accounting for the inherent effect of exposure to air pollution that occurs where there's more traffic and proximity to traffic. So yes, there's definitely air pollution exposure is a bit of is something that really it's not just about physical activity and sedentary behavior at all. The built environment's effect on our health is a function of both behavioral and exposure impacts occurring in these same spaces. So that's right. So one of the worst things that we could do is really get we don't want to be promoting enormous amounts of physical activity without also addressing, we need to address the air pollution exposure issue as well. But yeah, but it's not a reason, maybe I'll rephrase it. One of the worst things we could do is hold off from promoting physical activity because we have air pollution problems. Most research shows that the physical activity, I'm not sure I agree with this completely, but physical activity benefits are enormous. And avoiding sedentary lifestyle is the thing we need to focus on the most, while also addressing air pollution exposure.
Questions or from the committee? Director Swallow.
I just wanted to say thank you for this. And thank you for the clarification. I was looking at my neighborhood versus the neighborhood across the street, and I'm like, why are they so different? Our access is the same, but so that clarity was good about the socioeconomic impacts and demographics. The one thing I just wanted to say to the RTC is thank you for doing this. I've already texted our team, and I'm like, how can we use this in our prioritization process with our One Nevada plan, and or in how we develop our mitigations on our bigger projects where we have to mitigate impacts. So thank you so much, RTC, for leading the way on this.
Thank you.
So if I could just follow up, so how can we do this? I mean, what are you saying we should be doing?
Well, first of all, thank you for your comments and I think awareness that this topic is so important to the public. I think you've made the first step. Which is great. You have great leadership in this region. You're providing great leadership. I think one next step is to consider, I don't know the schedule or timeline of the RTP, but that would be a natural apply. The tool now is set up and able to run here. You have 30 different indicators. I think teasing out the air pollution exposure effect would be really important, looking at green space, mapping that more carefully. We did a broad brush. We're at the census block group level, which is pretty spatially resolute. It's fairly fine grained, but there's a lot of information that needs to be developed more fully. And I would propose that maybe we come back if there's interest in what might be the next step within the RTP process, identifying different scenarios at both the regional scale, but then zooming into specific locations, some test cases that are more localized, maybe even a corridor level kind of analysis would be very helpful. And some of the more strategic ones that you have the most health concerns and equity issues happening. Thank you.
So I just follow up. So, for example, East Las Vegas, which is a lot of the red there, what kind of things would we be doing? We're trying to do bike trails, we're trying to do more parks, is that what you're talking about?
Tree planting.
Tree planting.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank
really
you.
Important. In fact, I was wondering at the beginning of the project, we talked about making perhaps linking up. These are my words, of course, not so I could get in trouble. But there could be some linkage between the tree planting and the active transportation infrastructure. It's of course you've thought of this, I'm sure, quite a bit.
So, yeah. Asking the attorney or someone, do we have the authority to include trees with when we build a road or build an intersection?
Cool.
Yes, Commissioner.
That'd be a good national model.
Mm-hmm.
And flood control said they had a ton of money, so we're like almost there.
TIC's already spent it all. Thank you, Dr. Frank. I think this was really important, and I think whether it's now or as you continue the work, and Deb, briefing each of the jurisdictions, comprehensive planning departments and public works departments, so it's not just housed here at RTC, I think would be really important.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good.
Yep. Councilman Brown.
Yeah, I was going to say just, I'm really heartened by this because, in the communities that are medically underserved, North Las Vegas, we have about 20% of the population and 5% of the providers, medical providers. We did that ourselves. For this, this is part of the overall strategy that I think in the long run will pay dividends, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
And should be incorporated into the master plans of every single jurisdiction.
Right.
All right, thank you so much, appreciate it, and let's move on.
Right, thank you, Vice Chair. Next on the agenda is item 25, and our Director of Human Resources, Ms. Decretia Harris, will introduce the item.
Good morning, members of the board. This item is to evaluate the performance of the Chief Executive Officer for the period of January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. Formulate recommendations on management goals and objectives for 2022 and adjust compensation or take action as deemed appropriate. On December 9th, 2021, the RTC Board of Commissioners appointed Chairwoman Deborah March, Vice Chair Justin Jones, Councilman George Galt, and Councilman Isaac Barone as members to serve on the Evaluation Committee to review the performance of the CEO. On February 7th, 2022, the Evaluation Committee met to evaluate the 2021 performance of the Chief Executive Officer. At this point, I will turn it back to Ms. Maynard to give a brief presentation and then to the board for action.
Thanks, Lucretia. So this time last year, my presentation was heavily focused on the pandemic, the shutdown, and how we were responding and reacting to the ongoing health and economic crisis our community was facing. However, in 2021, some things were different. The nation responded by creating a vaccine for the virus, attempted to return to some sense of normalcy, and invested in programs and infrastructure to assist in an economic revival. Right here in Southern Nevada, we remained open for business throughout 2021. We hosted live entertainment and sporting events. We lifted pandemic travel restrictions. And schools, retail stores, restaurants, and medical offices remained open throughout the year. These efforts helped jumpstart our road to recovery that has allowed us to reconnect to our family, to our work, and to our community. At the RTC, we continued to be nimble and adjusted our operations to the changing conditions and federal and state mandates to help keep our residents and visitors safe. We found ways to reconnect in our day-to-day operations, as well as factor these connections into our future plans, projects, and initiatives. This past year has challenged all of us, and I want to say truly thank you to our board. Your leadership, your dedication, and your vision continues to guide us here at the RTC on this road to recovery and ensuring that we are providing the mobility services that our community needs and wants. We feel very lucky to have you as our RTC commissioners. I also can't thank the executive team enough for their leadership this past year. Dave Swallow, Francis Julian, Angela Castro, and Mark Trosdahl. They infuse energy, passion, and commitment into everything they do. As I present some of the notable accomplishments achieved in 2021, I want you to know that without the incredible staff at the RTC, every employee, every manager, all of them, we would not have been able to accomplish the many projects and initiatives this past year. This is a team that strives for excellence in all they do, a team that cares deeply for the community that we serve, and I am very, very fortunate to work with this amazing group. And as you know, it takes a village. I'd also like to thank Keolis and MV and Marksman, employees, all of them, for their dedicated service to our community and their role in assisting the RTC to accomplish its goals. So for today's presentation, in the interest of time, I'm going to list some noteworthy accomplishments, but there is more in the report that we've provided you. Additionally, included in the strategic plan that we also provided to you, you'll find the complete list of RTC's 2022 priorities. So as an agency, and thanks to your, again, ongoing leadership and direction, we continue to strive to enhance the customer mobility experience, in 2021 was no exception. So this past year, we were able to successfully launch a mobile and web application we're calling My RTC Para that allows paratransit customers to schedule their trips, see where their buses are, and purchase their passes, all of this in real time. You know, this technology has been available to our fixed route customers for a number of years now. We had a great opportunity to ensure that we are providing equity to our paratransit customers as well. This past August, as part of our service enhancements, as you know, we launched the RTC On Demand. It's a universal transit concept where fixed route customers, our paratransit customers, and students, high school students, are able to access an on-demand mobility service in the Southwest and West Henderson area of the valley that previously had zero transit service. We also partnered with Clark County to partially fund our Game Day Express service to Allegiant Stadium and T-Mobile Arena to provide efficient transportation option to see the Las Vegas Raiders, the Golden Knights, and the UNLV football team. The popularity of the Game Day Express is equated to approximately 3,500 customers taking round-trip service per game, which takes those additional vehicles off the road, helping to reduce traffic congestion and air pollution. And driver shortages have affected, of course, as you know, the RTC, but also the Clark County School District. And so we partnered with the school district this past October to launch the Ride On program that provides select students at 15 high schools the option of using RTC transit to and from school. These schools are selected based on their proximity to existing transit services. And we have about 1,000 students to date that are using this service, not only to go to school, They use the service at night, and on the weekends, we're able to kind of track where they go by way of their transit passes. So we are developing these new transit riders. We're pretty excited about that. And then Maryland Parkway BRT. So preliminary engineering and design activities continued on RTC's BRT project. We requested a change of project designation from new starts to small starts, which is approved by the FTA and will make this project much more competitive for federal funding. The team right now is preparing the capital investment grant application, which will potentially lead to grant funding for this project. As an agency focused on improving all regional modes of transportation, we continue to look for ways to improve roadway safety, congestion, and capacity. So in 2021, we continued the work zone and lane closure program to locate roadwork that negatively affects traffic signals and transit operations. This program also includes an alert system installed on RTC working vehicles that have light bars that, when activated, indicate where workers are or near in the roadway. This information is shared on the Waze traffic app to alert drivers. It's really another layer of safety for the workers in that area. In early 2021, RTC created the Regional Events Traffic Management Meeting to better understand the traffic impacts associated with multiple concurrent events within the region. And so the FAST team, they worked boots on the ground. They worked at the traffic management centers at the Allegiant Stadium and managed successfully 65 events this past year. And they did all of that actually in real time, so very impressive. As a result of the adaptive signal control technology pilot we implemented on Eastern Avenue in 2020 and the positive results from that pilot, we met with the Resort Corridor Mobility Association, including the major resort properties, to initiate a feasibility study to understand their operational mobility needs and assess if this technology can improve travel time on Las Vegas Boulevard. The feasibility study just wrapped up, and we look forward to sharing the results of the study with you in the very near future. And then in 2021, after adding an additional 65 dedicated short-range communication devices, or DSRC, in the area of Allegiant Stadium, Southern Nevada now has more than 200 DSRC roadside units deployed at signalized intersections that support autonomous vehicles so that they may operate safely in live traffic. And this is important because Motional, in partnership with Lyft, they have been operating the largest autonomous vehicle program in the US, so this has been a big plus for them. And then the current capital improvements program was approved by the board, as you know, this year. It includes projects worth $2.2 billion over the next 10 years. In 2021, 86 interlocal contracts for new projects worth $229 million have been awarded to member agencies. $245 million has been expended on design, right-of-way, and construction activities, and 56 projects that have been completed and closed out. And I'm really proud of the Streets and Highways team for the immense analysis, tracking, and collaboration it takes to coordinate this program with the member agencies. It's not uncommon to hear the phrase safety first when working in the transportation industry and at the RTC. Of course, this is something we take very seriously. So this year, the American Public Transportation Association honored the RTC with a 2021 Gold Security Award for a large-scale transit system. That investment allowed us to add more lighting. We invested about $21 million. We added more lighting to bus shelters. We installed enhanced video surveillance cameras on our buses and at our facilities. And of course, we're continuing to move all available shelters farther away from traffic. And the RTC, in conjunction, again, with Marksman, our security contractor, introduced the Community Relations Transit Team, or CRTT, this past year. This program is designed to engage with the community to provide exceptional customer service to our transit customers. So the officers assist the riding public. They provide fare enforcement, patrol areas of concern on behalf of both the passengers and bus operators. And to date, the CRTT has had more than 100,000 positive customer interactions, saturated multiple routes where problems have been identified, and assisted in multiple community events, including RTC's game day service. This new approach, moving from potential negative interactions to proactive and positive interactions between security officers and our transit customers. Additionally, the RTC received the Gold Standard Award from the Department of Homeland Security this past year with a score of 99.73%. The base assessment evaluates a transit agency's various and mandated security programs. Later this year, a representative from the Department of Homeland Security will attend a future commission meeting to present the RTC with this prestigious award. And then finally, the RTC Safety and Security Team, in collaboration with Keolis, MV, and Marksman, worked to reduce assaults on board our transit vehicles by analyzing data and predicting where incidents could occur. So this data allowed us to place officers on specific routes in advance to drive down the assaults trend. De-escalating training for the security officers was also implemented to work in tandem with the problematic situations to reduce potential for violence. To date, assaults have decreased by 3%. The program is proven to be successful and something will continue. And then Team RTC recognizes the crucial role we must all play in order to address climate change, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and improve the overall quality of life for Southern Nevada. So in 2021, the fleet team worked diligently this past year, as you know, to create the Zero Emissions Bus Plan, which identifies steps we'll take to transition to 100% zero emissions fleet by 2035 as funding becomes available. And it's interesting, we developed this plan not knowing that it is now a requirement going forward to compete for federal dollars. So good news that we are ready and prepared to do that. And then as part of RTC's planned deployment of its first fuel cell electric buses and subsequent fleet expansion, design began on hydrogen fueling infrastructure required to support its initial fleet of 15 buses and future expansion. Construction and installation is anticipated to begin this year and will be complete in 2023. And then in 2021, we added standalone solar lighting sources at 300 stops in all jurisdictions throughout the valley, and that's above and beyond the 200 that we're going to continue to install with the grant funding that we received. The light serves a dual function of providing security lighting in dark locations while illuminating the bus stop, sign for both the passengers and the operators. And then as an agency committed to all modes of travel, this past year the team promoted cycling awareness, education, and advocacy by collaborating with local government agencies and nonprofits like the Southern Nevada Bicycle Coalition to host community bike rides, safety maintenance training, and advocacy and media events. The RTC was also the first agency in the US to partner with Transit and B-Cycle to integrate bike share passes into the Transit app, allowing riders to undock bikes from their smartphones. We also launched a rewards program to encourage customers to take more trips and a reduced fare option for students, seniors, and veterans. As a government agency, we understand that it's our job to ensure we be good stewards of public resources and assets. And in 2021, we continued accountability through the following initiatives. As you know, we spent a good portion of 2021 in conjunction with our financial advisors developing a comprehensive financial model that includes a 10-year history of transit financial results and a 20-year forecast. This baseline model is the foundation for projecting the financial health of the RTC transit system and the capacity of the transit system to support future major improvements. Additionally, Mark and his team issued a $100 million fuel revenue indexing bond in 2021. Obviously, this bond, it's important that the timing is essential to ensure that money is still available and always available to produce those roadway projects on behalf of the member jurisdictions. And something that we're really proud of, and it's the first time that we received zero findings by the Federal Transit Administration in our Toronto review, and that's a comprehensive audit. It's an audit on steroids, and it looks at every single segment of the agency for a three-year period. The fact that it was zero findings, I challenged the team to get zero findings, and they did. It was amazing. And then, again, proud of the grants team. The Federal Transit Administration recognized the RTC for being the first transit agency in the U.S. to be awarded the ARPA 5310 grant. This demonstrates the aggressiveness of the RTC in applying for and utilizing federal grant dollars. The FTA actually recognizes this. They appreciate agencies that use grant funds expeditiously, so it's also a consideration when they're awarding competitive grants. And then, as you know, we completed the agency's first ever strategic plan that will serve as our 5-year roadmap, which we'll update on an annual basis. And then as the MPO and administrators of Southern Nevada Strong, we have regionally collaborated with your planning, public works, and economic development teams this past year to successfully advance the following studies and plan. This past year, the RTC led the regional analysis of extreme heat and vulnerability in Southern Nevada region, completing the Phase 1 report. The RTC coordinated with public health experts, local planners, and researchers to develop a new tool that can inform where residents may need more help in combating increasing temperatures. Our MPO is also busy evaluating existing and future housing conditions. So guided by the Southern Nevada Strong Regional Plan, forecasts of demand were developed for different costs, incomes, ages, and housing types based on a modeling tool that incorporates current demographic data and develops future needs. The RTC also collaborated with Clark County and the City of Las Vegas to develop the Maryland Parkway Corridor Transit-Oriented Development Plans that envision compact, mixed-use, and dense development to complement the future Maryland Parkway Bus Rapid Transit Project. And then completed in conjunction with a land use study led by Clark County, the RTC led development of the Stadium District Transportation Plan. The plan includes recommendations to increase walkability, create mixed-use development, and enable multimodal access. And then finally, the RTC developed updates for the 2 opportunity sites, which included the downtown North Las Vegas opportunity site and the Las Vegas Medical District opportunity site. Both plans focus on redevelopment and economic diversification. Next year, the team will work on updating the Boulder Highway opportunity site and the Maryland Parkway opportunity site plans. And lastly, in developing partnerships and promotions in 2021, it continues to look a little different due to pandemic-related restrictions. However, despite these restrictions, the team still managed to identify creative ways and opportunities to reconnect with our community and promote our programs and initiatives. Staff continued the resources, involvement, support, and education, or otherwise known as the RISE program, where they worked with local, small, and disadvantaged businesses to help establish them as a ready, willing, and able to do the work with prime contractors and RTC-funded projects. To date, staff has certified 45 local, small, disadvantaged businesses and attended or hosted 23 events. As a result, 24 related construction projects included RISE certified firms. Overall, the staff promoted projects, services, and initiatives at more than 200 community events and speaking engagements, and interacted with 52,000 individuals to keep external stakeholders and community partners informed, educated, and engaged. And then Angela and her team did a great job in forming 20 partnerships this past year with all of the sports teams, with the healthcare industry, with the library district, and they did that as a way to continue to advance the RTC and get the word out that we want to hear from our community. And the last but surely not least, a big highlight in 2021 was when the team planned, organized, and executed 7 consecutive days of community-wide events to introduce the transit service changes that would reconnect the community to healthcare, education, sports, the outdoors, and more. The efforts garnered more than 100,000 impressions on social media and nearly $800,000 in public relations and advertising value. I remain committed to working on your behalf and ensuring that we, Team RTC, are putting the needs of our community first by planning and providing the most efficient and effective mobility services and transit and roadway infrastructure that will keep our community forward. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Maynard. I can say that that was a very impressive list of accomplishments. I know you've led an amazing team here at the RTC. Comments from the board? All right. I was on the evaluation committee with several of my colleagues here, and I think that Ms. Maynard has proven to be a real leader of this organization, and it was therefore the evaluation committee's recommendation for a 7% merit increase, and on top of that merit increase, we made a recommendation that Ms. Maynard receive a 3% cost of living adjustment that other RTC employees will receive in July 2022. You saw the report, very impressive. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the evaluation committee's recommendations.
Move to approve.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Congratulations, and thank you, Ms. Maynard, and the entire team.
Thank you very much. Thank you on behalf of myself. Thank you so much. And I am committed to working diligently on your behalf, and as well as working side by side with an amazing team. So item 26 is our standing legal item, and there are no matters to bring before the board at this time, so we will move on to the next item, which is item 27, and is your final citizens participation period.
Thank you. This is the second time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to the board, now is your opportunity. Please come forward to the microphone to provide your comment and state and spell your name for the record. Very good. There's no one else that wishes. Nope. Coming up.
Good morning, council members, MJ, Francis, members of. I would like to say that my name is Barbara Powell. Last name P is in Paul, O-W-E-L-L. I'm a 26-year operator for the RTC system here, most of which have been really good, really great. I just want to say that I would like to put on the table that there are some problems that need to be addressed. Safety. As an operator, and mostly an overnight operator, MJ, I don't feel safe. There are things that I think that will be addressed later with you, Francis, with you, MJ, hopefully, with my employers as well. But our safety system needs to be restructured. It's weak. As you stated, Councilman Anthony, there are no consequences for offenders and repeat offenders in our transit system. We are threatened. Many of them have been spat upon, not me, physically assaulted with no repercussions. You know, disruptive passengers are taken from one vehicle and put on another to possibly present a problem later down the line. Passengers also are not adhering to the no loitering policy. We also have the dummy signs up that say that it's a misdemeanor to threaten transit operators. What a joke. What a joke. Nobody's being reprimanded or nobody's being arrested. These gentlemen here are not going to, are not empowered to ticket anyone, to remove anyone, to arrest anyone. I assure you that if I were to go off and decide that I wanted to verbally or physically assault any of you, the gentleman standing to my right, the gentleman standing to my left, would make sure that that didn't happen at all costs. We would like to know that we have that type or similar type of protection out there in what it is that we do. And with that being said, I would like to say thank you and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to express public comment at this time? Hearing none, then we'll go ahead and close public comment, and thank you all for your participation.